All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to write an algebraic expression to represent each of these verbal expressions. So basically, we're going to take these words and we're going to put them into numbers, equations, expressions. Okay, so let's look at this first one. Our first expression here says two more than the quotient of a number and 5. So the first thing I want to do is figure out what some of these words mean. All right, so right here I have the words more than. More than means I'm going to add. So I'm just going to put a plus sign above here so I remember that. The next key word I have here is quotient. Okay, quotient tells me that I'm going to divide. So I'm just going to put that here. All right, and now that I've looked at my key words, I'm going to actually look at the problem as a whole. All right, so it says 2 more than the quotient of a number and 5. All right, so first thing I want to do is look at this part right here. Quotient of a number and 5. So I know I'm going to be dividing, and the two things I'm going to be dividing are a number and 5. Okay, now you can use any variable to represent your number, but I'm just going to use n. All right, so it says quotient, so I know I'm going to be dividing. I'm going to be dividing. The first thing it mentions is a number, n, and then the second thing is 5. All right, so I have the quotient of a number and 5. And then I want 2 more than that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add 2 plus 2. All right, so I have 2 more than the quotient of a number and 5. And I'm done. Okay, it's not equal to anything, so I don't put equals. I don't try to solve because it's not an equation, just an expression, so I am finished. Okay, so I am going to look at the next one. The next one says 5 times the sum of a number and 1. Okay, so let's look at our keywords again. 5 times. Times tells me that I'm going to multiply. The next keyword I have is sum. Sum tells me that, again, I'm going to add. And I'm just going to choose n for my number. All right, so now let's look at it. 5 times the sum of a number and 1. Okay, but before I can multiply anything times 5, I have to figure out what I'm multiplying. So I have to figure out how to write the sum of a number and 1. Okay, so I know I'm going to be adding. We already said that. All right, and what am I adding? I'm adding n, my number, and 1. All right, so the sum of a number and 1. Now I want 5 times that. So I'm going to put my 5, but in order to show that I want 5 times this whole thing, I'm going to put it in parentheses. 5 times the sum of a number and 1. And we're done. Okay. Now this next one is a little trickier. It says the sum of 2 consecutive integers. All right, so again, our keyword here is sum, so that tells us plus, but then we have this trickier part here, consecutive integers. All right, so I'm going to use the numbers 2 and 3 as an example. Now, we don't know what the integers are, so we can't put a number in the problem, but I want to look at these to figure out how to write it. If I say my first integer is 2, I could use n to represent that. Now, to get to my next one, what do I have to do? Well, to get from 2 to 3, you go plus 1. So to get from an integer to the next consecutive integer, you would add 1. Okay, so to represent consecutive integers, you just say n plus 1. So now we can go back to the problem. Now that we know how to write consecutive integers, I want to write the sum of that. Okay, so I know sum means add, so I'm going to put my plus, and then I'm going to say 2 consecutive integers. Well, my first integer we said was n, so I have n, and my pen stopped working. There we go, n, and then we have n plus 1. Okay, you can put this in parentheses if you want. Don't necessarily have to because it's all addition, but if you want to, you can. And then technically you could simplify this, but I'm not going to because all it does is ask us to write an algebraic expression.